Hello, everyone. Welcome back to probably the biggest Chichester Chats ever. It's me, Phil. Lilith is MIA. Of course, Mr. DG Chichester is here, but two special guests, Mr. Marcus McLaurin and Mr. Gregory Wright, because in the 90s, they co-wrote a big story together. Big crossover for Love Nor Money. Yes. Between Terror Inc., Cage, and Silver Sable and the Wild Pack. Which, Greg, I was telling Mark, we're going to have to have both of you on separately because I know, we're big fans of the 90s stuff, like Cage, Silver Sable. I have at least one co-host who's going to be like, yes, you must have him back to talk Silver Sable. So, one of our favorite books. So, all right, first question. Who put this all together? Was it an editor? Did one of you have this crazy idea, or?
I think it was the three of us. You know, the big thing was Marvel didn't give a shit about any of our books, so they gave us no promotion whatsoever. And one of us, likely Dan,
that's what I recall,
went and said, "Well, how can we get some promotion?" And they said, "Well, you'll need to come up with some kind of a storyline that we can promote." Okay. I think Dan probably spearheaded the basic idea for the story, if I'm not mistaken.
It has his fingerprints all over it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sex demon. That sounds like Dan to me. Yeah.
Basic idea. But I mean, the three of us. I mean, so there was no editor involved. Actually, no. That's fair. Actually Marcus was the editor.
Yeah, I was the editor of Terror, and I wrote Terror. So I got to take
one of the reasons we got away with some of the stuff we got away with.
I would love to take credit for it, but I think I've said this many times over the years, especially to you, Greg. I think the blame for the story probably goes to Clive Barker, because I think we were all mutually influenced by him in various ways, and it just normalized the fact that you would have a moist sex demon, going after some throbbing artifact, and all this raunch and delightful perversion just seemed very normal to all of us, having been in that world for so long. So a tip of the hat to Mr. Barker. I don't know, Phil, I think you're responsible for trying to describe the storyline, to the listeners, just so they have some context for it.
That's how crazy it is, kids. The three writers can't even tell you what it is.
Oh, I could, but I want to put you on the spot.
Well, again, it's the three main characters who are each tasked with getting a piece, one of the three pieces of this artifact, and I don't know. It's and the main demon, I guess, is
Priapus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, which it took to pull back the thing that we knew that these three books put together is that all the characters are mercenaries. All the characters would interact with each other and yet hadn't. So this is a storyline where they could get the opportunity to do that because they're all hired to get the same thing.
Yeah, and I know the comment was made that there was no promotion. I think Dan said before, it's like, in the 90s, if you wanted a lot of promotion, you had to do a big crossover event, or you had to do a big storyline in your own book, or something, some hook to get I guess editorial or somebody to, in the
sales and promotion wanted that thing. You had to give it to them. They weren't going to give it to you unless you were a mutant or a spider, probably, but you had to come up with something, so I think I had done the story with Fabian and Chuck Dixon on the Punisher and Nomad, and we had done a crossover in that way, maybe before this one, I don't remember, but maybe that gave me the inspiration to do that with this. But this was a perfect melding, as Marcus said, because the mercenary angle was so just right there, and these were just characters we all enjoyed and thought they would be fun to play off each other.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't actually get any promotion.
Did they do nothing? They did no poster. We got.
I don't remember ever. I see it across this years later.
They were like, "Oh, we're going to do all this stuff," and they didn't do anything because no matter what they did, it wasn't going to sell X-Men numbers. So
Yeah.
they would much prefer to promote the X-Men, which will make them look like they could do their jobs.
Yeah, they got credit
But
for
I'm not bitter.
promoting stuff that was already being promoted.
And the Punisher wasn't showing up, so
Yeah, we didn't bring the. If we brought the Punisher in, they would have been like, oh,
oh, the 90s, yeah.
Then they'd be like, please bring in Wolverine 2 while you're at it.
And take your characters out of it. It would for more room for that. But how many issues were we in before like Buddha? I remember was Bob Budiansky.
It was the end. We were like
finally clued into like, what are you guys doing?
It was probably the last issue of Silver Sable, and Bob was one of the. Was that when they were doing the 5 editor-in-chiefs?
Yeah, because he was one of the editor-in-chiefs.
And so finally he signed the last issue out, and he goes, "Hey, you guys know what Priapus is?" And we're like, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you guys doing?" And I'm like, "Well, it's already done now." And he went,
"Yeah,
okay,
I think it was a double-edged sword. They let us do whatever we wanted, but they didn't pay attention to whatever we wanted.
Nothing. I mean, it's
Right.
it's us. I mean, nobody said anything to us. I mean, Marcus, how irresponsible of you not to tell Dan to stop doing that stuff in Terror.
But in defense, and this is patting ourselves on the back, Marcus, unlike before the podcast rolled, like I think we were all professionals enough and respectful enough of each other and the characters that, as outlandish as this story is, it works.
It does.
It's actually a really good story.
It does. It works great. It's just
like
having
the beats are all there.
It just has a penis god. So
right, but we sort of honored each other's characters, and it was fun to have that baton pass. That we set up and have. Being able to suddenly be in Luke Cage's head, or Silver Sable's head, instead of just it being, a terror story or something like that, or looking at, obviously it was still a terror story when I would pick it up, but, suddenly I got to play with these toys in this way, and then leave a situation where, Marcus, you had to pick up on it, or however. Yeah. How did we work that out? Did we work all that out?
We did work all that out. As I recall, it was like we knew this needs to happen in this section. This needs to happen in this section. Yep. Here's where we ended off. Here's where you start. Here's where you ended off. Everything in between is up to you.
And up to you. But like, it's good. They'll be in a shark cage at the end of it. Good luck. Like something like that, right?
No, we knew how it ended. So the three of us actually concocted the entire story. It's just the manner in which we told it was up to each of us individually. But it was pretty tightly outlined. But it's funny. It was tightly outlined, but it was done in a way that we could do what we wanted. And the good thing was that we were very familiar with each other's characters, liked each other's characters, and having Marcus being one of the editors, it was really easy for him to be able to control the stuff with Terror. So that was and my editor on Silver Sable, I guess, didn't pay any attention to anything we were doing. Who was your editor on Cage?
Kelly Corvisi.
Oh, so I mean, I'm sure Kelly was fine because Kelly is another one of our.
He did a really good job.
He probably enjoyed this whole story.
But I mean, yeah, you all did a great job writing this, because I mean, sometimes you read a crossover and you're like, oh, why is this character acting like this in this book? I mean, everyone seemed consistent through all the books, all the characters. So I wasn't sure how much input everyone had into everyone else's book, because I was like, man, everyone's pretty much being written very. It was consistent all across the board. So I was like, oh, is everyone like kind of chipping in on every issue?
Did we? I seem to remember we send each other our scripts and
we were trying to make sure that everything was done the right way. We didn't like interfere with each other. So we read everything before it went out, and I don't remember if there was much that we needed to change, but that was the point, just in case somebody did something that just wasn't, because we all came from Epic, where we were really taught how to do comics properly. So we, part of it is collaborating, correctly, and so we did. We just, we put our egos aside, and everybody got to do the stuff that they wanted to do in their issue, and it was very easy. Sometimes these things are not very easy, and this was simple. We just did it, and it worked out. And
the hardest thing I remember is that we all worked really hard to make sure we got the voices right for each of the characters.
Yeah,
so it was no way generic.
That's where I think it was good to be able to share those scripts, because then I don't remember if any of us gut checked each other, but that would have been a good time to sort of say, oh, that turn of phrase here might be a little better, or maybe try this. And to Greg's point, there was no ego that I remember about taking a suggestion or giving a suggestion. It was just each other trying to make the books better, the storyline better as a whole.
Yeah.
So I know Dan had said with the Dead Man's Hand storyline, he talked about like him, Fabian, and Chuck kind of got together for lunch. So did you guys actually sit down in person and like plot this out, or?
I don't know if we did it in person. Did we do it?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't remember.
It's hard to say, because there was only a couple of times I remember the three of us got together, and it was with Clive. When I left staff, Marcus was taking over my books, and he was taking over a lot of the Clive Barker material. We all had lunch with Clive that one time, and I don't know if we were discussing that at that point. We definitely did it over the phone. I don't know.
Yeah,
I was
more.
at that point.
Where were you? You were.
I was in Washington D.C. I think I was in Washington.
Oh yeah, then probably you would have been in Washington. Marcus,
but I used to come up frequently, so I don't remember actually. I don't know. It all worked out. However we did it, it worked out. It was all nice and clean. There was no like, what the hell did you do here?
This is far too civil a reminiscence, Phil. You need it more like controversy. Like, oh man, Greg fucked me on this.
Well, I thought you and Greg were going to get into it.
Yeah. Greg's only sworn twice so far, so I don't know if he's been on his best behavior.
And the order, like it came out, like Terror was first, then Cage. Then was that just set by the shipping schedule, or?
Probably.
I think so. Yeah, that would have made sense because wherever the story started, and we wanted to start it probably as soon as possible for all this great promotion that was coming our way. Maybe lining up, since if Terror was first, that would have been the reason to do it.
Yeah, I don't remember us like jockeying for a position. It just sort of, because that's how, like when we were working on the Midnight Suns books, every time we did a crossover, every 3 seconds, it started in whatever book was coming out first, and your order was predetermined. So that's the good thing. Nobody had to say, oh, but I want to do the beginning. Oh, I want to do the end.
Right.
Yeah, I remember I had a lot of B stories in Cage that I was trying to punch up, and I just sort of had to, put them a couple pages in each one of the sections, each one of the chapters that Cage did to say, okay, spinning this plate for a little while, but we'll go back to the story.
Is that like the biggest challenge of like crossovers like this? It's been like, I don't know, you have to decide, okay, how much of my ongoing story can I squeeze into this? Do I have to put stuff on hold for like 2 months, or?
Well, not for me, because I tended to write either 1-issue stories or 2-issue stories. So for me, I was just, this is the story that I'm doing. Some of the background stuff that I could do it or not do it. So for me, it really wasn't an issue. I could, we just did it, so I didn't have to worry about it too much. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, I had put, I don't know if I asked you for this, Dan, but I put like a between 6 and 12 issues ahead of time, just an outline of where I wanted to go with the different stories, with the, B plots and stuff. And then when this opportunity for a crossover came up, I was like, okay, we'll just put that in here and push all that stuff back, which was fine, because this was an opportunity, and I loved the collaboration, and I loved the idea of 3 characters who, with very different, I think they were very different perspectives on what they did.
Oh yeah, that's the best. That was one of the most fun things about it, is you define them as you did, like they're mercenaries, but their whole operating procedures, their voices, their motivations, whatever, were so different, and that's what made it a joy, as opposed to, here's murder, death, kill, tactical weapon system 1, murder, death, kill, tactical weapon system 2, and so on. So,
but Cage wasn't a murder, death, kill.
No.
He was the nice guy of the bunch.
None of them were necessarily, but it's just, there are certainly many instances of mercenaries in action things, or mercenaries in comics, that are just cookie cutter, approaches. So calling them mercenaries is
right.
They're the way they operate. They'll do it for money, but or they'll be hired for a job. But we got to really dig in and play them out differently, which is a joy as a writer, right? Because you get to have very distinct voices to work with.
Oh, got a comment. Terror Inc. needs more recognition. Bring him back, Marvel.
Absolutely.
Bring it back with Dan writing it. I don't think.
Do you remember, Marcus? This was like, I don't know if I ever talked to you about this. Do you remember the 2-issue fill-in issue that Jorge Zafino had done? There was like a monkey's paw sort of story I'd written, and we were going to run it as like a fill-in or whatever. But he had done 2 issues. He had inked the whole damn thing. It was done, and it was in your drawer. And I, when Black whatever day hit and they let everybody go, I went into the office to try to salvage it, and and it was gone from your office. I was able to salvage the Mark Nelson, Nick Fury, Doctor Strange thing, but those pages and that story like vanished, and that was totally done.
A whole bunch of stuff out. I made the mistake of my office when I left. I was very over diligent in making sure everything was organized for someone else to pick it up. It's like, here's where this is, here's where you can pick this up. And they're like, okay, great, thank you. Now that you're gone, everything goes away. I had 3 to 4 issues of the second Clive Barker series in the drawer. Like there were 4 books, 3 issues of each in the drawer, ready to launch. And they just said, nah.
But did they go back to Clive or somebody, or did
some
they
of them
vanish?
went to Clive, some of them went to the artist, some of them went to the pencil, some of them went to the inker.
Right, but I don't know what happened to that Zafino artwork. I don't know if it went back to Zafino's. I don't know if it went back to him or.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But it was. I went in like the next day or something, and that's like I said, I grabbed the Nelson stuff because I knew that was going to vanish, and I sent it back to him, but he was such an amazing artist. It's a shame not to see every single page that he did for that, because it was so amazing. Yeah, he was just a force, and that was such a great, I think, ahead of the curve decision on your part, to choose him. He was not obviously the most commercial artist at that point in time, but I mean, he defined that book and that character, in such a way for me, that it was such the right on choice for everything that followed. So thank you for
dark
having
and
that foresight. Yeah.
You may, might answer one of my other questions, like Dan, we talked about before. When everyone, when people get got let go and stuff. Because I was like, I thought with crossovers, like on the Marvel Unlimited app, if they either put the whole crossover on it or none of it. The only issues on Marvel Unlimited in this crossover are Marcus's Cage issues. That's it.
Really? There's no Silver Sable?
How could
there's only 2 Silver Sable issues for the whole series, and that's neither of these issues. So.
Really?
It's like number 1, and I think it's number 23 or something. Because I don't know if it says because Deadpool.
Yeah, that's weird because I wish they would collect Silver Sable.
Yeah,
they haven't. But it showed up in, the only thing that showed up is that Deadpool story showed up in a Deadpool thing. These stories showed up in Marcus's Cage book.
The Cage book, yep.
And then the first issue showed up in like Women of the 90s or something. And Terror's, I don't think it's ever been reprinted anywhere, which is really a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought once it went into a trade or it went, I thought they automatically put them on the app, but
I don't know. I have no idea what they do with the app. I don't look at it.
Yeah, I just thought Silver Sable they'd be up there just because of this, tangential link to Spider-Man. And
I would think if it's called Marvel Unlimited, it would just simply be.
Apparently it's not unlimited.
It's very limited. Yeah.
You probably won't find a lot of the older graphic novels on there either.
Yeah. What's so weird? It's like you can find older stuff and you can find more current stuff. The 90s seem to be like this big hole. It's like hit or miss, where it's like, yeah, this might be on here, might not be on there.
Well, because there was a whole lot of crap. The 90s is where they were just trying to put out so much material, and so a lot of people came sneaking into the industry and got to do material who just weren't ready. So, some of them have now become quite good. But there was a tremendous amount of material. It's like, we'll hire anybody as long as they'll do another Spider-Man series, and it's so there's some just dreadful stuff. And I think the problem is there's a lot of good stuff, but if there's 50 stupid Spider-Man things out there, how many people want to wade through 50 of them to find the good stuff?
Yeah.
And you hope that none of our stuff was part of the crap. But a lot of writers were writing 6 books. That's really more than you can actually write. But when you're offered it, you take it because you may not get that opportunity again. And I think that's part of the problem is I don't think they know where all the good stuff is if it doesn't have an X or a Punisher or a Spider-Man on it.
I think you prescribe way too much quality control to the omissions on Marvel Unlimited. I think it may just be that they don't have the damn flats or files or whatever, and they have to.
That's what I always wonder because I mean,
but I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes they do fill in the holes because I know for a while there was a bunch of Dan's Daredevil issues that weren't on the app, but I think they're all on there now. So I don't know if it's
I think their marketing strategy, and this is a guess, is that I know the Cage stuff came out right before the Netflix Cage stuff came out. The Daredevil stuff came out right before the Daredevil Netflix came out. It's like they look to see where can we, people are going to watch this and they're going to want to buy the comics.
They have a TV show or a movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why they should do a Terror Inc. movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. By all means. Go for it. It'll fit in.
Tell Clive Barker you just slap his name on it, Clive Barker and D.G. Chichester's Terror Inc.
Yeah. I think this Terror's owned by Archie the Marvel, isn't it? Is it owned by Marvel?
Yeah. I mean, it would the Genesis, obviously was the Shadowline stuff, which was owned by Marvel. And then when it transitioned over and we, renamed it and just made him appear there, it was always a work for hire property. So
yeah, because he's made a random appearance or two.
Even at Epic, it was work for hire.
Yeah, because it was a Shadowline.
You and Margaret and Klaus didn't have ownership in that.
I mean, we when they did that David Latham, and I don't even know if they paid attention to me when David Latham did that Terror Inc. miniseries a number of years ago, and he sort of like put him in battle gear and tactical gear and lost the whole point of the erudite, dress up thing.
Yeah.
I contacted the editor and I said, this should have a credit in there that says created by me, Margaret, and Klaus, even just for the incentive payments, not for and I don't know if they ran it because I never looked at the book, but I made, I insisted that they do it because that was the right thing to do so that we'd have that trackability. But it was done as a Shadowline property, and Shadowline was owned by Marvel through Epic, because all those books were work for hire. Archie developed them as as company properties. So
and I wish they would digitize more of this stuff too, because then you guys get payments for that, right? When people read your stuff, like if I buy like a random back issue, maybe not a big one, maybe, but for
I mean,
I don't know.
That would be nice. $4.90, that's fine. I've gotten reasonably okay checks, not anything like not a massive payday, but I gotten like more than pizza money when they, but then it's like this long, it's like it's indexing 50 issues across 20 Epic collections. It's pennies literally on the dollar, but I'm okay with that showing up every now and again.
Did you ever get a check for 24 cents? That's hilarious.
No.
Probably cost them more to mail it.
I was like, why would you send me a check for 24 cents? I mean, I just couldn't. I should have framed it, because it was just so hilarious. DC's a lot better about it. I get a lot more money from DC because no matter every time they reprint anything, I get money.
And I know they've reprinted that other stuff. I know they've reprinted like that Amalgam stuff and that Batman Daredevil thing before, but I don't think I've ever gotten a dime for that.
Supposedly they're reprinting all of them here soon, so yeah, you might be.
What's that?
Supposedly they're reprinting all that Amalgam stuff, and
they did a giant omnibus book.
They
did they did a giant like all the, what do they call it, Elseworlds, or all the DC.
It's called it the Amalgam universe. But
there's also one that
you should have gotten a payment for it. You should have gotten a copy of it as well.
Yeah.
They sent me one. They should have sent you one.
I did not rate. I did not rate the page count. So
What do you
I
think
needed to.
is it like a thing where it's like, Warner's and Disney are both like, well, you pay the man. No, you pay the man.
Yeah.
No, I heard very directly I did not have enough pages in the book to warrant the
Like
expense of the book. I did not rate I did not rate that. So
That's crazy.
tell me what your 24-cent check.
Exactly. Look, I've got a 24-cent check.
Well, you should have been paid for the reprint and everything else. You should have gotten that. That's just contract.
Yeah.
I would think, but I have other things to occupy my time. So
Well, I mean, to just add insult to injury, the 2 trade paperbacks they made of Luke Cage, it was, we shared it. They didn't send me a check for those 2.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. I don't know if I got a check for those.
You're supposed to.
You should get the most check
money
from
for
it.
both of those, my friend, as well as royalties for the thing. Did they even send you a copy?
Yeah, they sent me a copy. That's how I knew.
One. Once upon a time, you get a case. You got 2. Wow.
2 copies of each of the 2 books.
Yeah.
From Midtown Comics.
They do. That's the thing.
I know they use Midtown. They use
Comics,
Midtown. Right.
which I find hilarious.
So they're not bringing actual books into the office or anything. Okay.
Right.
Oh, what's this? Terror Inc. movie.
Yes.
Walter Goggins is Terror.
Yeah, there's a nice casting choice
for the win. That's a good. People are always saying who should play him, and I'm always at like sort of a loss. But now I've got my answer. Thank you. That is excellent.
Good job, Ray.
Nice job. I mean, that ghoul. Did you connect that because of the ghoul on Fallout, or was that just inspired? Either way, it's great.
Yeah.
That's no Ray. So all right, so we have a Cage actor already. We got a choice for Terror. Greg, who would play Silver Sable?
There's a whole bunch of really good action actresses now. So it would be pretty easy, I think, to find one. I can't think of any of their names at the moment.
Charlize Theron.
She's a little old, but she'd be great. Yeah. She's amazing.
5 years ago.
Or even that Anna Taylor-Joy, she was great in Furiosa.
Furiosa, yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of really great. I mean, that are really good actresses, and they can kick ass. So there's a bunch of them that would be cool. It's more fun for me to think of the Wild Pack that I created. And who would play the racist, bigoted asshole, and who would play the sadomasochist, and that would be much more fun for me if they would actually do those characters.
Yeah,
because they were doing a movie and they were gonna and the character they chose was the racist, and then they were gonna choose the lesbian assassin, but they were changing her completely. It's like okay, and then of course the movie never got made.
Were they doing a solo Silver Sable in the Wild
No.
Pack, or was it like Black Cat? Yeah. Then they cut.
But they didn't talk to me about it, So
then they like scrapped it for Madam Web, right?
Yeah, that was great.
What a choice.
Yeah, good choice.
Oh my
that's
God.
true. So I'll never get to see anything now that they've killed the Spidey.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
So
I haven't seen Craven yet, but I hear things.
Well,
yeah,
nobody else has either, so it's good.
But I like the actor that they got though. He's really good.
Oh yeah, he was good.
So I feel like maybe it's not going to be a terrible movie. It's just maybe it's a terrible Spider-Verse sort of movie.
It's not a great movie.
You saw it?
I saw it.
Oh God.
I have a certain number of free movies I can see, so I saw it and I was like, but it was not impressive. Well, I didn't like, I don't know. For me, it's difficult for me to take the idea that, this character has negative motivations. I mean, Terror Inc. is a negative character. He does positive things, but he's a negative character. But it's interesting to see that in a story. But I don't understand how they make that same translation to like Craven without adding a whole bunch of extra detail, or just all the other characters that they add, that they have to add a level of interest and likability that's not inherent in the character by
Were
itself.
they trying to make him a hero, like in Craven? Is that what they were trying to do? Like sort of like
because of
an
his
anti-hero, right?
Yeah.
Right. But the formula, and that's the thing, right? To me at least, the formula is the Sopranos or the Penguin, which I haven't seen ostensibly, but
Yeah.
You know, like just treat it. It's a villain. Like you're not trying to make it. You're just telling a really great story about a horrible character as opposed to trying to do this anti-hero flip.
Yeah. The Penguin did it right, in my view. I was thrilled with it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Although,
you hated him the whole way through, so
you know,
yeah, I mean,
I
they really
can't
played him
remember
as a villain. Yeah,
the woman that the woman gangster, she practically steals the entire show from the Penguin.
Mhm.
She's so, what is her name? She's fantastic. But yeah, that was done right. I mean, it was interesting. Again, it's exactly what you're saying. Do a good story about the villain.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. I mean, you're not going to get 3 movies out of Heroic Craven.
No.
Well, I mean, some of the characters, I mean, they get so popular, they want to like spin them into like heroes or at least anti-heroes, like Harley Quinn or Deadpool or
Venom.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Who would have ever thought Deadpool would work as well as it does? It took the right people at the right moment, and they had to leave them alone.
Yeah.
Because I remember when the first one came out, I was like, holy crap, they actually did this the way it should be done. And it was inappropriate and horrifying, and it was just so much fun. And people are taking their 5-year-olds to see it, and they're going, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "They told you this movie. They really
it's an
advertised
R-rated
it that
movie.
way."
Right. Sit through the whole movie and then come out of the theater. This was so inappropriate. Oh, man.
Yeah, we told
You
you
know.
that.
Oh yeah, I heard people had babies there at like midnight watching that movie. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still wish there was a room for more types of stories to be told. You know, that's the thing I liked when I worked at Marvel, was that, we told different types of stories. It was all in the superhero genre, but you had Terror Inc. existing in the same universe as, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And, but not crossing over, but just being able to tell a real horror story without it having to have a funny edge or a soft
Right.
edge. It's really rough. People can get killed and it's not funny.
Yeah, I think.
You think that's? I'm sorry, Phil. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say no. I just think that's why I love the '90s, because these days it's like everyone has to cut all the characters, if they're in the movies or anything, they kind of have to be similar to what they are in the MCU. Like, I mean, you look at Sam Wilson; he's painted or he's drawn, completely like Anthony Mackie at this point. And, oh yeah, Punisher was looking like John Barenthal for the longest time. Yeah, but like back in the '90s, like there was no statement. You guys could just write and do what you wanted to do. Well, especially this story.
Well, what's cool is an artist like Jorge Zafino could do Terror, and it would be on the stands next to Spider-Man, drawn by Mark Bagley. And that was, for me at least, in the office, I really enjoyed seeing all the different types of art that you could do. I mean, I can't imagine Jorge doing, a Spider-Man book, but the fact that you could have a book, because Jorge's stuff was so different from everybody else's. And some people just didn't get his work at all.
That was, less commercial. I mean, would we have done better sales-wise if you would put, somebody who was more of an image style artist on it? I don't know. I mean, but artistically, creatively, it lit up like fire. It was just like, oh my God, this is so perfect.
Yeah.
That's why I said it was an inspired choice. But I think I don't follow Marvel or the mainstream stuff, issue by issue or title by title. I think it seems there's a range of artistic styles, at least the things I've seen. I don't think there's a limited, like, just simply house style, but I think there's a difference in some of the quality of stories, and people's ability to just land the beats. There's a lot of like things that just don't like hit the moments. Things kind of meander.
We were perfect sometimes. In the 90s.
I mean, the '90s. Why go back in the day when you could have a nice, wholesome sex demon story? I mean, we don't get that anymore.
Motivation, I mean, it's actually a decent story.
It is.
It's a good story, yeah.
And it hits, some beats, and there's some depravity, not just from, you know, the sex demon, but you know, in terms of the characters playing off each other and everybody reacting to terror, and that was you know, fun seeing you guys playing that out, you know, in this.
It was so much fun to play with terror.
Yeah.
You know, he just didn't look right when Stephen Butler drew him, you know, because I'm used to seeing, you know, Jorge, and all of a sudden Stephen Butler's drawing this very clean version of the character. But it was so much, you know, fun. Not as much fun as writing an on panel orgasm, you know, that they allowed.
Well, there you go. You know,
So
if only
I
we
had
had
that going for me.
audio chips or a scratch and sniff, you know, variant thing for that.
Oh man, if only we could have had scratch and sniff for this issue. Can you imagine?
That's why you didn't get the promotion. That's why.
Maybe we provided those ideas and they didn't like them.
Well,
I thought they were really good stories. I thought they were on the edge of depravity. I don't know if I just blocked that part out of the story in my head.
No, it's not. It wasn't bad taste. It was.
Yeah.
We didn't delve like into things for Grant. You know, or you know, we weren't being British authors. You know, in other words, you know,
we weren't being gratuitous about
taking the piss out of it for the sake of taking the piss out of it.
No, I mean, it all had everything had a story purpose and a story point that we did.
Right.
It's just that some of the subject matter was, you know, I still don't understand why nobody seemed to notice it. You know?
Right. You know, big heart thing with a big phallic emblem that like plugs into it, but yeah, I mean, it added up for what it was doing, but yeah, I don't think we were ever trying to be depraved, Marcus, for the sake of being.
I was.
Brave. I don't think so. I mean,
I was saying, how much can I get away with? I absolutely,
I don't know.
You know,
I think
was waiting for somebody to say you can't do that, and it didn't happen.
Greg wanted that article in Wizard Magazine. Can you believe what these three guys are doing over here, Marvel?
Well, I don't give a shit about Wizard. That was a shit magazine.
Was there such an article?
No.
Oh.
All Wizard did was get down and worship the ground that the Image guys was on, and tried to claim that they were the reason that Image was popular. So, you know, I remember meeting those guys when they were working at Wizard. I'm like, you guys, you're just a bunch of sycophants. You know, we're like, no, Wizard, boo.
Yeah.
Did I say that out loud? I did.
What was he? Are they in business now? No.
I just like the idea of, you know, the crossover. The thing I like best about the crossover that we did was that we were taking control of our own characters and trying to promote them independently and trying to build a new audience for them out of the cobbled audiences.
Right.
I wish we had done another one, because it was a lot of fun to put those characters together, and there's no reason why they wouldn't be interacting, you know, more off, because it's very likely that they're going to be going after the same stuff here and there.
That's an interesting point, and really kind of a lost opportunity, you know, on our part, you know, to have not acknowledged it a little bit more, like sort of kept that relationship. Not that we didn't have a relationship, but I mean, just sort of done a nod, you know, like Marcus, like a B story sort of thing. Not that you didn't already have B stories going on, but you know, that reference point, not that it might have made a difference, but that would have made a lot of sense, you know, to continue to sort of like weave in and out a little bit more and build that like universe that we had more control of.
Because I mean, Silver Sable just hired people that she thought could handle whatever job she needed done. So I mean, she's sort of built in to crossover neatly anytime you just feel like it.
Right. Or you could have hired Terror at any point, like, you know, you needed more muscle and you could have brought him back in and just, you know, hired him on, even after his book was canceled. You know.
Well, I don't remember if Silver Sable got canceled shortly after that, or, you know.
I don't know. Didn't you last till like 30 or something, or 40? I thought you
30 some issues, I think. You know.
Yeah, you were around longer than Cage.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
You could have hired them both, and instead you left them on the unemployment line. Nice job, Greg. You know, literally in the title, or at least the old title, "Hero for Hire." He was right there. It said it right there. You know, you could have like brought him in.
Do you guys happen to know, like you guys shared notes? Did the artists like share like any like character sheets or anything, or Was there any talk between the artists, just to make sure the looks were consistent? Or
The stuff was
Well, maybe
passed
the design
around
proprietary.
as reference.
I want to think that it was Brett Blevins, but I'm not positive.
Who designed it?
Who designed the character? Yeah.
It
Was
looks
it?
very Brett. It's got a very Brett
reference
flair to it.
material was sent. If the editors didn't do it, we all absolutely had art reference and sent stuff to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So everybody would know what the pieces looked like of the Trist and what Priapus looked like. Beyond that, it was just specific to the comic, so it wasn't necessarily need to cross.
Having Marcus in the office was the reason it all kind of worked, because he could go to the office and collect whatever needed to be collected. If he wasn't in the office, trusting editors to actually give him stuff around sometimes was a very difficult thing, because a lot of the crossovers we did, you'd write your part and all of a sudden nothing matched. And it was because nobody provided the proper reference, and not every artist is on time.
Right.
So unless you design everything ahead of time, which I think maybe Brett designed everything, here's all the pieces, this is what they look like ahead of time, so that everybody had what they needed. I don't remember. I mean, that's something I think you probably handled that.
Yeah, I just remember that we had everything right in line. Like we had the character designs, we had the colors of the character designs, because that's the thing that really goes wrong often. We have a character design, but it's in black and white, and when they get into separate books, they get colored differently.
Yeah, that's always fun.
He looks better green, but he's red. So, no, that's a great point. That's a great point. I think that's, again, Phil, like a little bit of, we had an edge on some people and be able to do something like this a little more easily, because we all also had editorial backgrounds, and that was, we'd look at it both in terms of story from a writing point of view, but also process from a editorial, point of view, which everyone doesn't have.
Yeah.
And Dan, you were saying about, we should have did another crossover. Or there are certain times they wouldn't let you do a crossover, like say if they were like, oh, hey, there's a whole wide line, Infinity Crusade, or or all the X books are doing this big thing right now, you can't do your crossover. Right? Was there ever any of that?
I mean, from my perspective on a C-level book, D-level book, not in terms of quality, but I mean in terms of like where it fell like the hierarchy. I Marcus was a very flexible, open editor, open to pretty much anything. But even so, there wasn't a lot of like, no, you can't do that. Is it a good story? Was the gauge, right? Are you telling a good story? And my saying that before wasn't even about. Yes, we could have done another crossover, but we could also just acknowledge each other's characters more. Like when they went back to their separate titles, it would have been easy to sort of say, oh, Terror stole a job from us, I thought we had that job. Well, Silver Sable took it, and that type of thing. So that would have been a fun little.
I just never told I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I bought like a bunch of Silver Sable back issues not too long ago, Greg, and it seems like you were getting hit with a bunch of crossovers. Like there was Infinity War, Infinity Crusade.
Well, they asked me if I wanted to participate, and my thinking was I really would like this book to last a little bit longer. So much to my chagrin, I said yes, and they were stupid on crossovers. But if it got a few more readers who might stick around if they like the book, that's just one of the things you have to do when you're working on a book that is not a super hot seller. And at that point, Marvel loved to cancel any book that wasn't making the massive amount of money they wanted. Because it was, when Silver Sable was canceled, it was making money. It just wasn't making the money they wanted. So you did have
it's amazing.
to do
There's
that.
Titles that exist now that sell way less.
Oh yeah,
than those books which got canceled.
Yeah,
and they're
which
keeping those alive.
is sort of amusing. But that's why you
they don't even announce sales figures anymore.
Yeah,
I don't think they don't. I mean, I got no sales figures on Black Armor, the Daredevil thing at all. I asked for them multiple times, and it's doing well. People, stores like it, but
on the scale of numbers, it's good.
It's good. Yeah, it's good.
What does that mean? I don't know. All I know is that was a good series. Black Armor was great. I
could have sold 100,000 copies. It could have sold 100 copies. I think that's.
I
think
really did enjoy it.
strategically they just don't.
I just wish you got that 5th issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, at one point there was a 5th issue, and then the changeover, and then Netho had some sleepless nights, but he did it, so it was good. All worked out fine.
It did.
Yeah, I don't know if they know numbers these days because you have to do the physical, then you got to do the digital. I mean, I guess they could if they put the
Well,
time.
they got to know the physical numbers. They got to know.
Doesn't mean the editors actually get the numbers. Somebody knows them.
But I think it's also, you can say it's best selling or it's sold out. And if it's sold out because we only printed 1,000 copies, that sounds amazing, right? Well, it's sold out. Whereas if you say I sold out 1,000 copies or 10,000 copies, that's not much. But but saying simply, so I think it gives them more latitude. That's my theory. I don't have no proof on any of that.
So is that the trick these days? Because a lot of times, like popular books, are like, oh, we're going back for like a 3rd printing, a 4th printing, and it's like, well, did you only print 1,000 the first time? So,
I have no idea, but that would be a nice grifty way to do it, right?
That's how marketing works.
Well, that's the whole industry these days, right? Because I don't think any of the books are selling what they did back then, right?
No,
probably not even like Spider-Man or anything, you know.
X-Men. Oh, actually, that Berserker thing that Ron Garney did the art.
Oh, that sold.
That sold like hundreds of thousands of copies and stuff.
Yeah, it sold 600
really did well, which is
thousand
great.
copies.
Ron's awesome.
Yep.
Well, that's the other thing too. I mean, Marvel and DC have a lot more competition now.
I don't know if I'd say they have competition. You know, most of the indie stuff doesn't. You know, they're selling, you know, like 600 copies, 1,000 copies. You know, the competition really is, you know, the cell phone and the video games and the streaming and everything else that is taking people's time.
And the TikTok and the Google.
Yeah, all of that. That's the competition. The comics themselves really, they're not really competing against each other. There's not a lot of it that's, you know, that great. You know, it's like, and I always thought, oh, these Marvel movies are going to make the Marvel books sell. No, didn't happen. You know,
but I think if you walk into a good comic shop these days, I think there is more competition for your attention at the very least. I mean, I see a wall of stuff of a store that is not just carrying the total mainstream. It's like, oh my God, look at all these titles.
Right.
So I do think there's competition for attention at the very least. If you're really interested in comics as comics and not just simply, oh, I've got to check off the universe checklist.
Well, that was the 90s. It's like, okay, you have to buy all of the Spider-Man books to understand what's going on.
Right.
And that agitated the reader. You know, I totally get that.
Yeah. I remember the Cage wasn't doing that well. And then we did the crossover, and I was like, fingers crossed, you know, that we build the audience there. And the issue after the crossover was my team into what is it called? The Infinity Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
And I did one issue of that with the Crusader because I'm very on the nose. And then after that, they let me know that the book was probably winding down. And I had a storyline that I had been setting up for like 10 issues. And so I had just enough time to finish that off from 18 to 20.
Right. Well, I remember they told us, Marcus, and maybe I misremember this, but I remember they told us we had 4 or 5 issues to get Terror up.
Yeah.
And so we thought we had, I think, to 17 or 18. And we had started to plan okay, we'll do some more horror-ish things and get some more, you know, crossover or integration. And then they just stopped it like halfway through 13, and we had to like do that kind of quick wrap up, you know, and then Richard Pace did that nice final like coda page. I think I might have had to rewrite that ending, but I do remember that was like we suddenly got it just stopped, you know. But
yeah, I mean, it's a downside of comics that you have the best comics are ones that are really well thought out, planned, and then carried through. And the problem with that is if it doesn't support it, you suddenly have a story that's really well planned and thought out and trying to be carried through and is canceled in the middle.
Yep.
Well, that happened a lot.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, that was the thing is the suits did not care that your story wasn't finished, and they would, you know, there was books that got canceled literally. No, you're done, and it's in the middle of a storyline, you know, and that's, you know, you're leaving the reader hanging. You know, at least give them an issue to, you know, finish somehow, because when I was a kid, if I couldn't find the next issue of a continuing story, I would be very upset.
What happened?
Yeah,
I would never know. And it's like I still, there was an issue of a Marvel 2-in-1 that I couldn't find the next issue. I never knew what had happened until I was a grown up, and then I just happened on that issue, and I went, oh my god, I have to read this story and find out what happened. Because now you can find it on the internet, you can find whatever, but I think I just it stuck with me from the time I was like 14 when I bought this story. I was like, I never found out what happened, and now I know that I
yeah.
have.
Now you know.
Cage, the best example of that is in Cage. I mean, because Power Man and Iron Fist, the last issue has Iron Fist dying,
Mm-hmm.
and that got left alone for like 10 years. It's like just left it there.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
I mean, not even just dying, but like Luke Cage being accused of killing him.
Right, this
Like, how do you leave
cliffhanger
a
just
story
out
like
there.
that? Yeah,
Right. Nobody goes back and checks on it. It's like, what's going on?
Well, that's the thing is we're going to redo this thing. They don't really read the old stuff, and
Yeah.
then they just start doing stuff that flies in the face of continuity. So
Mhm.
when Mark Grunwald was alive,
you know how many
he would
sentences
call me
start
up and say, "Listen, these guys messed up the continuity. How about we do a little story within our books that fixes the continuity?" I mean, and there was a few things I wrote that literally the point of the story was to fix some goofy continuity thing
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
nobody did, and it was a lot of fun because you'd try to figure, okay, how do we make this into an actual story that the fans will buy and they'll go, oh, that's kind of cool. But this stuff happened all the time. Or people just like, well, I don't really care. I've decided that the Punisher now doesn't kill people, and they would just like, no, or I don't like his origin story. I'm going to change it. No, this is the character is the character.
Yeah.
Operate correctly. You don't get to do your version of it that doesn't make sense. Like you don't have Spider-Man killing people. He doesn't.
Until he does.
And then we
ultimate killer Spider-Man.
Oh, it was the clone.
Well, I think at like the Marcus's point, not finishing up his Cage series back in the day. I mean, people could be on books for years. I think like these days, most writers are lucky to get like a year or two on a book, and then they like, restarted a new #1 with a new team, and it's like if you want to tell a complicated story, it's like, well, give me more than a year.
Yeah.
But that seems like that's also a creator choice from the little I've been able to glean. Like I was talking to some artists, and they were, it's really too tough for me to do more than 8 issues. I can't. And God, the dream was to be on a book regularly.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like, guaranteed income and quote unquote guaranteed. But I mean, I talked to a number of artists, more modern artists through Netho, and there seems to be a whole thing. I don't want to do more than 8 issues. I don't want to, or whatever it is. So maybe I think writers may be the same. Like I want to do my story and I want to get out.
Well, I don't know if it's the pay too, because again, I mean, this. It's a lot. Most writers I talk to in comics these days are like, oh yeah, I have my own Kickstarter thing, or I have, or they're working at 3 different companies writing books. So
I got the same page rate that I got 25 years ago. So you could see how the industry has advanced, which I guess I should be lucky. I got the same page rate.
I got a lower page rate to color stuff.
So.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what I was gonna say. Everything. I swear, half the '90s books I crack open, it's either Gregory Wright writing or Gregory Wright coloring, or.
I was a greedy pig. Let's just say it. I was.
I no complaints.
Hey, if you're prolific, you can be prolific.
I appreciate that.
So do you prefer one over the other, or it's just a job, or?
It's never just a job. I mean, the thing is, when you worked at Marvel Comics, you generally worked there because you had to look for this sort of medium and stuff, because especially when we were there as editors, the pay was shit. I mean, live on the pay. So you had to do freelance just to be able to, survive. But you had to really like it. And, most of the people, at least in our era, they really, liked it. And it wasn't just a job. I know we all really tried to put stuff in the books that meant something to us. And we really wanted to encourage the artists that we worked with as editors and as writers to really try to tell that story and really do some great stuff. So when again, it's funny bringing up Jorge, when somebody like Jorge Zafino came along, it was just so incredibly exciting to see those pages come into the office and go, wow, look what he's doing. It's nothing like anybody else is doing. And if you were the one that was lucky enough to write the stuff, it wasn't that he just had a cool style. He was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
He really, really, really was. So yeah, it was never just a job. But for me is, I liked both of them equally. The thing about, as a colorist, I was able to kind of call my own shots a lot better. As a writer, you'd have certain editors that would mangle what you did. You would have artists that didn't want to draw the story; they wanted to draw pin-up pictures. But sometimes you'd get lucky and you'd get teamed up with somebody that you just really, really enjoyed working with. It's like the greatest thing ever. Even being an editor, getting to look at artwork like we got to look at every day, holding it in our hands for as long as we wanted. It really it's never just a job. It was always something that was just a thrill to get to do it. I even consider it a privilege even now. The little bit the work that I do, it's I'm only working on stuff I like, but it's a privilege, and I'm trying my best to make it something special and memorable, if not for anybody else, at least for myself.
Yeah, I think in that way, working at Marvel is a lot like teaching for me. It's like nobody goes into that field because they're like, I want to make $1 million. They go into it because they love doing the work and they value the craft and they want to do something cool. And because they see what's cool that was done that they grew up on, so they want to make something meaningful.
I just did it for the money, But, no, I think I agree with what both these guys said, and I'll include teaching, like in a creative sphere of things, because I think it is a very creative, sphere in the way that you have to create your lesson plans and bring the kids. And I think it's just it's an important mind shift thing in any endeavor like that. I think that and some days, you feel like I have to, right? There's a grinding mentality of like, I have to do this, but you shift it to, I get to do this. And that's the big difference. And that's where you always bring your most authentic abilities and your most powerful abilities, to create something and impart something, in others, which is what this is all about, beyond simply Marvel, but, the ability to kind of be in that creative, sphere.
All right. Very good.
So we went from penis jokes to, heady shit like nice art.
I got more penis jokes if you want.
I was going to say, any final thoughts? But yeah, penis jokes. I
was going to make a bad joke about heady thoughts, and
penis.
I'm not going to.
Yes, nice. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Yes, guys, this was a great treat.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us all. We don't all get to hang out together, so
the last time I saw these two guys was another podcast.
Right. Where the guy, like I said, never gave you a chance to say word one. Oh, we'll get to that stuff. We'll get to the epic stuff.
Like I said, I want to talk to these. I want to talk to these two individually. So
you should.
Anytime, it's always fun because you're like, oh wow, I actually did something that somebody actually gave a shit about.
Yeah.
Because you do wonder, did anybody care? And it's still fun. I was at New York Comic Con, and I don't have a table. I'm just wandering around, but I'm sitting and talking to other old has-beens like myself, and these kids and fans come up, and then they find out who you are, and like, oh, you did blah blah blah, blah. And you're like, oh. Okay, that feels pretty good. So it's kind of cool to still like, okay, because I always think, well, I'm sure nobody remembers me. Even like pros, I'm sure they don't remember me. So it's always nice that, they remember me. I mean, they do chase me down trying to kick the shit out of me, but they remember me.
You ruined my life.
I'm just glad to know that to have people know that I'm not this Irish guy who wrote Cage.
So true. So true.
You're not?
No.
Were any of your kids ever impressed that that you wrote comics, or was it just that's dad's job?
I didn't work in comics when I had kids. I had kids right after I stopped working in comics.
No, mine could not have cared less.
My wife
could not have cared less.
Yeah, she tried to kind of get him interested when he was young. Like, oh, your dad used to do comics, and there was never a single iota of interest. But when the Daredevil show came on, and he sort of keyed into, wait, that Daredevil is your Daredevil, and then the suit wasn't the same. It was like semi-armored, and then it was a little bit. There was much more of a connection, and I think like cool factor a little bit more, along those lines. As he got older, not when he was younger.
Mine likes anime, so it was like, well, did you do any anime? I'm like, well, the closest I ever came to doing any anime was
that's a no.
I was there when Epic was reprinting Akira. Other than that, and then she was impressed that I knew a couple people that worked on a couple TV shows that she likes, but none of that had anything to do with me. She's like, well, ask this person and tell them how awesome they are. Thanks, kid.
All good.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Marcus, do you have anything you want to plug? Any projects, any social media, anything?
No, not right now. I'm working on something, but I keep saying I'm working on something and not talking about it. So let me not talk about it. I'm just impressed by watching what these guys are doing, and I'm happy to see the Daredevil stuff and what these guys are still producing.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yes. All right, Greg, do you have anything you want to plug?
At this very second, I'm actually working on the color art for Graham Nolan's latest Return to Monster Island, which is still crowdfunding, and it's a really fun, sort of lighthearted, sort of monster book and stuff. That one's very cool. I've got a semi-secret project I'm working at DC with Tony Harris, so you can probably figure that one out. And then I'm working with Ron Wagner on this really bloody Western that's about 130 pages long that he and we're co-coloring it, sort of. So it's this interesting sort of amalgam. And Larry Hama wrote this. And if we ever get it finished, it's something that I will be really excited to talk about when it comes out, because the end result pages that between, Ron Wagner did the pencils, and then he kind of came up with the color together, and then he sort of polishes up the characters when I'm done. But it's to me, I look at it, it's just so seamless, and I don't know where we began, but it's like the end result I'm so happy with. It's one of those things that you go, okay, this is why I still do comics, because it's just I'm looking at him going, and since Larry wrote it, I know everything that we'd worked on is not going to be covered with balloons covering every little part of the art but it's like the best work that Ron Wagner has ever done.
Wow, that's amazing.
If we ever finish it.
I was gonna say, well, either of you gentlemen, when you're ready to announce stuff, if you want to come here, we'll talk it out. Yeah.
Cool.
What about Dan? What else do you have coming up?
I know he's working on something. Can you announce anything yet?
No, but I can say that I pulled myself out of my gap and relaunched my newsletter, so you can actually go to storymaze.substack.com and find new content. I'm well ahead of keeping that current, and I just this morning or last night put up the pre-launch page for the second issue of Axel's Infernal, the kickstarting project. So this is a pre-launch, it's not launch. We're trying to gather up names, but if you go to tinyurl.com/Axel's Infernal, that'll take you directly to the pre-launch page. You can see the trailer, you can see some background on it, and then you can sign up for notifications for when we do launch. But I want to get the numbers up before we jump in and actually launch the project. So I expect a couple 3 months of generating names and such to get there.
It's an awesome project.
Yes,
it's so good.
The second issue.
I hope more people really go look at it, because it's it's very cool looking stuff.
And Greg has been an awesome creative consultant on it along the way and helped to make it better, as well as salvaging the old files that would have been lost to time a while ago.
There's no penises that's
There are no demonic damn penises.
Well, I don't know yet. There might be coming up.
Yeah, it seems like everything he's worked on lately, it seems like you're the editor, like the editor for free, Greg, because every time he's like there's a new project, he's like, yeah, I sent it to Greg Wright and he told me, this is good, why the hell did you do this?
Mostly it's why the hell did you do this, and then occasionally it's like,
well, the thing is,
it's good moment, or this would be really good if you knew what you were doing, but that's
Dan and I have known each other forever, so we have a lot of the same kind of brain stuff, and neither one of us is afraid to speak the actual truth to each other. So it's nice to be able to bounce stuff off of each other here and there, because you just sometimes when you're talking to an editor, they don't really know you, and they may not understand what you're trying to do as opposed to what's on the page. Because the biggest flaw I always had as a writer was I was assumed that people understood stuff that I didn't put on the fucking page. And that was one of those things that Dan used to say, well, that's not on the page. And I'm like, oh, and then you'd have to kind of figure that out, because, and that happens a lot, like you'll write a story and the artist will draw it and they don't draw the part that's really important. So then you have to go back, you have to pay attention to that. And you got to go back and sometimes regurgitate part of your plot to make sure that the reader has a shot at knowing what's going on.
When they're not showing, you have to tell.
Yeah. And that just, it's best when it's all show. But that doesn't, especially on monthly comics, it didn't always happen. And not just from a new artist, sometimes a veteran artist did not understand your point and drew something else, and you didn't have time to have it redrawn. So you have to write some stupid thing that makes
Well, it's great you all have that bond, that close bond. We've been through the penis demon trenches together, so you guys have.
There we go. That's it. That's yeah. I went to Marvel Comics, and all I got was this penis demon trench T-shirt. Yeah,
I'm going to put that on a T-shirt.
Yes,
that's
it's all back, and we'll all be wearing penis demon trenches survivor.
All right, so yes, thank you again, gentlemen, and everyone will be back with Dan next month. So yeah.
All right.
Come back.
All right. Thank you very much,
guys.
Happy New Year.
Both of you. Take care of yourselves. Happy New Year, everybody.